Facebook Live and later on at the YouTube channel for the Pleasant Valley Center for Spiritual Living. Good morning again, and it is my pleasure to be here with you today. But there's even a greater pleasure, and that is because for the first time, a family member without a command performance has chosen to attend. So my grandson is with us today. See, I'm not going to call attention. You have to find him yourself. And Bill Rotella, find my grandson because he's off launching his musical career to New York. In a week. So there you have it. Watch for Colton. So, Birthquake came about as a result of a phrase offered by Michael Beckwith. And in fact, that was the song, The Power of Love, that was sung by the Agape Choir and Michael Beckwith. And so he used that expression actually a few years ago to announce to everyone the obvious experience that we're all having, that something is not yet born. It's an unseen possibility, and yet we're still in so many ways reluctant to give up the past. That so many of our memories and our perceptions and our experiences are still a haunting refrain that we keep playing either consciously or subconsciously. And so he came up with the phrase, now remember the song, We're Having a Heat Wave? Yeah. So he said, we're having a birthquake. And so my colleague and very good friend, Dr. James Lockhart, rephrased that in one of his postings, which really appealed to me. And the title of it is Birthquake. And so many things that happen in our world, we hold, of course, as very personal to ourselves, whether it's launching a career, whether it's entering a different stage of life, because we all are at different ages and different stages of our lives, and yet we've all seemed to gather here on this earth plane at this time in which there is unquestionably a call for not only change. Change seemed to have been relegated to the individual, but transformation is literally changing the form that we see around us. Change is simply, I think, the initiation where we make a determination within ourselves that it's time to really be more of a self-inquiring mind about ourselves. What is it that fires my passion and my imagination? And in a couple of places, quite obviously, it's music. And yet when you think of it, the music that each of us have in our own souls is extraordinary, and it's really that call of that invisible something that has not yet come into form to move through our willingness, through our acceptance, and our determination to not stay in the status quo. Because if you're in the status quo and simply navigating in the old ways, then it's no surprise to live the same old experience. So having made that statement to myself so many times, to simply sustain, regardless of age or station in life, to maintain that creative energy that opens new doors of opportunity for me. And so 2 things have happened within the course of the past month. Number one, I'm now teaching a class for an hour every other morning at the Meadowbrook Senior Living. And it's because of a colleague and a dear friend from Westlake who resides there now. And so when their teacher, who had been doing that for a while, left, she started promoting me. She went into high gear. So I have a press agent, and I acknowledge you, friend. Good job, good job. So, I'm used to speaking to my peeps, to people who are talking this language. So here I show up about a month ago on a Wednesday morning, and the first thing, of course, I said, do you have a board, whiteboard or a blackboard? Because I have to do my jiggling and juggling. They did. And so about 25 people showed up. and obviously in different stages and ages of themselves, some in wheelchairs, some in positions of not focusing. I asked at some point during my discussion, I said, does anyone here meditate? And this woman says, yes, I take Benikoff for my blood pressure. I swear, that's the truth. And it's like, meditate, not meditate. So this is, you know, me. I'm on unfamiliar turf, to say the least. And then now I started to do a guided meditation before doing the actual meditation of just silent, you know, pay attention to your breath or repeat a mantra. And so I said, just in your own mind, just listen to these words, you know, and I start speaking, picture yourself, and then everyone's at different stages starts repeating after me. It's like, no, you can be quiet, relax. So needless to say, this is a great adventure. And every time I'm there, it's like common ground. There's that within me, which isn't in the status quo of being so used to people being present who are familiar with metaphysics or science of mind or unity or any of the places that people search to see what's behind what I see. What is that invisible behind the scenes? But that's nothing. Can you believe, can you fathom in your wildest dreams, knowing me as many of you do for many years, can you see that at this moment, in a crate, there is an 11-year-old Maltipoo at my house. Shock, right? Shock. A birthquake. However, it's again related to Westlake Village and to two people that I met there, one of whom is a dog trainer and is also a volunteer for Mammoth Ski Patrol, and obviously a very active gentleman married to a woman who's a hypnotherapist, and they have no children, but dogs are their lives, and so they have two of their own, and they board, and so at any given time they can have 4 or 5 dogs, and they live quite close by to where I live in Westlake, and so we're constantly in contact with each other. Diane is also very environmentally involved, and so I'm on her mailing list. And so suddenly across the virtual reality comes an email the other day that says, generally, not to me specific, just inclusive to whoever was on that list, would anybody be interested in helping me out for a while? I had my sister's Maltipoo, but we have so many dogs in the house right now, it's becoming somewhat hazardous, so no commitment other than give it a try and see if it works. This should be resolved and the dog returned to its own owner. When I think of there's a dog in my house. Of course, at this moment, I would presume she's not very happy. And so I found myself, like you, well, call, go, explore. Take a chance. You don't always have to have the predictability of life, the page, the chapter, the line written out. You get to determine that for yourself. And so I responded, and I said, am I safe? Is she gone yet? And they said, no. How about we come right over for a meet and greet? And so this little puff of stuff came right in the house, like, that's it. Where are you putting me now? And I heard this voice that turned out to be mine saying, yeah, I'll give it a try. And they reassured me, look, if this doesn't work out, please do not hesitate. We'll come and get her in a moment, and absolutely no hard feelings. So I'm giving it a go. No guarantees, you guys. Don't get all excited. And so to see myself in the midst of someone who has their own routine, obviously has lived alone for a very long time, comes and goes as the wind goes to sleep when I want, gets up when I want. Well, things have changed. And so, particularly on a day like today when I'm speaking, it's like, okay, so if I get up an hour and a half earlier, would that help? So 5 o'clock finds me, and I've got to time myself, because if I'm meditating and she's out and about, it's like it doesn't work. She's not from the meditators as yet. And so this morning I caught it though. Why? Because I was up at 5 o'clock and she was still asleep, and so I meditated and then quietly snuck out of the room and did my thing. And so then I heard this yelp, and it reminded me, first thing, get her out. Well, it was kind of rainy, and I thought, oh great, my white carpeting. I mean, this is it. This is a lifestyle change, even 2 days. And so we muddled through that one. And so now she's in the crate, and the last I heard was this 8-pounder yelping and screaming. But she has this little cone where you can stick treats into it, and so she's got that, and so we'll see where it goes. But the purpose of this whole conversation is, there is no purpose. It's just that there is something within us all that is totally, completely, absolutely, at all times, under all conditions, responsive to a clear intention and to a deeper desire of our very soul that somehow longs for that something. And in these times that we're all here, truly, it's about making not only the personal changes in our own world that shift our worldview, that take us out of the position of really self-absorption. Because if someone lives by themselves and for such a long time and has carved their own picture of what their life is, then it is challenging to introduce that X factor, that unknown. And yet the whole world that we're presently living in is reflecting to us that it's no longer just important for this change and transformation to happen in our lives and throughout the world, but the transformative, cooperative effort we make to be in line with what do I think the universe has for me to do now that marks that step up, that takes that increased movement within my own consciousness. Because we know the stuff of the invisible, that word consciousness that we toss around so very often, it's the things we're aware of, but it's ever more deeply, and even more deeply, the things we're clueless about. And it's so much governed by old habits, old patterns, old ways of living our lives, and mostly in conjunction with our personality, what we think we want to make us happy, and what we require in order for that smooth pathway to continue in our world. And yet, everything in this world, in fact, even this week, having a couple of earthquakes that occurred in the LA area. Everything is a symbol of what's quaking and shaking and moving internally within the patterns, not only of ourselves and our own fears. And what can you do? What can I do? Number one, we need to establish, if we don't already have one, a consistent and ever deeper spiritual practice. We have to do the work. We have to do it at a deeper level. Because if nothing else, the power of our own capacity to remain composed and at a point of less, and ultimately not reacting to so much of what is going on. So, I have to work on myself diligently, because this is the week, or the next few days, that the other party gets to speak. So wherever I stand politically, I have to be of that mindset that says I am willing to give up my own inclination to humanly judge, to accuse, to resist, to rebel, and to reject. The 3 R's. If you think about your life and every stumbling block that you've had on the path, you'll find that I was either resisting, I was rebelling, or I was rejected. And the rejection is usually for a higher idea. How many times in your life can you remember, and I can remember for myself, somebody suggesting something and immediately it's, oh no, I don't think that would work. No, let's leave that alone and go on. That's simply moving, taking that next step forward and taking it with the willingness to experience the unknown, to see what that's like. And so the quaking and the moving and the shaking, wherever we are in our world, every day is a new day, and every day really comes equipped with its own creative opportunity to see, here's the menu, here's what's offered to you. It's your choice. You say yes to the things, that just make you continue to feel comfortable? Or do you say yes to the things that move you from your comfort zone and place you in a position, of asking someone if they meditate and they give me a list of their medications, okay. So I had a new learning curve in many, many ways. And, the bottom line is, what's your learning curve? We can talk about our own personal lives, but I think that's all a universal scheme that's designed for the connecting of the dots, because whatever you do in a greater way, and whatever I do in a greater way in my own world, that truly is the catalyst for the transformation of this entire planet. In every area of life, organizationally, in centers, in the yearning for centers for spiritual living like ourselves and other metaphysical teachings that are bemoaning the fact that every seat is not filled and the youth aren't crowding in. And yet the work is being done. People are meditating. People are engaging in more conscious, intentional direction for their lives. And they're just doing it in different places. They're doing it in yoga studios. They're doing it in music studios, giving free expression to that creative urge. And I think that's our work. What is it that's creative and urging me onward? Not out of somebody else's formula, institutionally, or even governmentally, or in any other way, even with the advanced innovativeness of technology that continues to tell me how I'm off in my use of my Apple phone this week. And I cheered, because that's another way of just taper off a bit. Don't be so glued to that piece of technological wizardry, wonderful as it is. Spend more time asking yourself the questions that are really screaming to be answered. What is it that's mine to do? And the answer will invariably come back from that higher realm of intelligence and love. There's no one who doesn't point to the fact that we're all in a state, lesser or greater degrees, showing it in different ways, of fear. And the opposite to that still is love. Do I love that invisible divine essence of my own being enough to grant myself permission to experiment in my life and to reach out in a way that helps someone else, and out of a deep commitment to serve the divine, because that's what we have to do. Otherwise, the ship sails off into quite unusual places that we don't want to see. Our Earth is demanding that of us. This planet is saying, what are you doing? As I walk around now with the little plastic bags to pick up food, I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm not helping the environment. But everything points to something else. And what's really fascinating about this dog, the temporary owners that I'm experimenting for, they are completely organically based. This dog is on a better diet than I am, with vitamins and enzymes and probiotics. And so I'm afraid, my goodness, I have to maintain that line, but it's not necessarily my line. Now it's coming out of myself and giving that to someone else. So isn't that the whole purpose? How can I come out of myself and give to someone else? See, I think people who really have that artistic way, be it through music, be it through art, be it through the written word. That seems to me to be a calling that's just not relegated to people who happen to be the artists and the musicians and the writers, the authors. That's the signal that if that urge to bring forth something of value and passion and creativity from within myself exists, and they're showing me the way somehow, then why don't I pay more attention? Not so much to the intellect and what Google says, or what the next text I get or response on Facebook is, but let me listen to my intuition. Let me really start tuning into myself, and invariably, when asking the question, the answer is given as to where to go, what to do, what to say, and to whom. So the birthquake isn't just a singular experience that happens on the Richter scale and reports to us what's happening under the earth. It's reporting to us what's happening under our own earth, under the parts we see and occupy as the people who are doing the things they're doing in the world. They're asking us to look deeper within and say, how can I be a presence that wherever I go, I give that aura, that essence, that radiance that comes from an inner light, be it from the moon or the sun. You know, in scripture, it's very interesting because when the heaven and the earth were created in Genesis, it was all about the sun was the bigger light and the moon was the lesser light. And yet, when you see the reflection of it, it casts its spell in the ways of brilliance and radiance. So really, in truth, there is never a lesser or a greater, because we know, as Emerson said, there's only one mind, nothing bigger or smaller. It's one mind. It's how we interpret. It's the degree to which I either give it my full attention, my partial, inconsistent attention, or else I do the work. I do the work, and I realize we're all in this together. And as Ram Dass said, and really ultimately we're just walking each other home. So I welcome the birthquake of myself, of you, and I know that somewhere within the universe, that's not isolated, what you're doing and I'm doing. Again, the dots are all universally connected. And the more I give of myself and meet up with you, giving of yourself, we'll find our way together to what benefits our entire planet. This is a time for human evolutionary transformation. And we now, remember the statement years ago, be an agent for change, be a change agent, kicking it up. Now we have to be agents of transformation for ourselves and for our whole human planet, all of which is divine. And so that's what I know. What do you know? Thank you.